So, what we'll do is we'll just sit here and listen. Thank you. That was my first one.
Cut it out. Didn't print it. Didn't print it for $2.
Thank you.
Just to let you know, the increase didn't come out on the page.
That's okay, we're gonna talk
Just
about
let
that.
you know, just let you know.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Well, it wouldn't be a great day if we didn't have one technical difficulty, so I think we got all of those kinks worked out. So at the next budget meeting, we'll have it on the screen and we'll be able to review it. But as of right now, we're just going to do a little paper system. So let's go ahead and skip relatively to the end. What you're looking at right now is the proposal for the 2020 budget. Testing. So right now you're looking at the 2020 budget. It also has the 2019 estimated actuals and the 2019 budget. The difference as of right now, when you look down those numbers, is a $2.12 a month increase for each one of the residents. That covers our reserves, covers any changes that we have that we've included in here under the proposed. And what I thought we'd do to start today off is at least go down each one of the line items and talk about how we came up with the number. If anyone has any things that they'd like to add, to have the committee vote on, and to continue down the list. So let's go ahead and let's start in the all the way on the column, all the way to the right, where it's the 2020 budget proposed. And we'll move past the association fees and get down to advertising revenue.
Number.
4110 advertising revenue. So that one we have at 104,000. Just like last year, we made the income equal the expenses. There's a few changes that have happened in 2019 that should make things a little bit more efficient, a little bit easier on collecting on the AR. And even if you look at the 2019 estimated, those are basically numbers that we projected forward, but we still think that that number may be higher, but I wanted to try to stay conservative if I could. So we have 104,000 there, and then what you'll find is when we get down to the end, we have $104,000 expense. The next one is investigation fees. So last year we did 150,000 for income and we did 150,000 expense. Even though we only charge $100 per person that we do an investigation on, we usually are paying much less to do the investigation fees. However, there are some investigations that cost well over 100 that we can recoup for. We're Florida statute limited to the $100 per person when we do an investigation. We're not allowed to charge more than that, even if it costs us more. Next thing is interest income. Right now that number is just an estimate. There's still a few things that may change between the first budget meeting today and the second budget meeting, so that number may change. The next one is the installation luncheon. So as of right now, we have it at what our net expense is, but that number too may change. Rental income. Right now we have it using the projected 2019 estimated. You'll know that it's more than the 2019 budget, and that's because there's increases built into the leases. Gate passes, we basically left the budget the same. Laundry income, we kept it the same as the 2019 budget. That's the account 4450. Yes.
Gate repairs.
Where are they in?
You have only $200 for gate repairs?
So that's an income item that transferred over from the 2019 estimated. That's gate repairs where we're reimbursed. So that number is obviously going to come off, yes. So it's not for gate repairs, it's money that we generated from someone
That's the-
hitting the gate
It's
and
not
getting
gate
recouped.
repairs.
No.
The last one we had, someone drove through both gates,
Right.
knocked the arms off and paid the $180.
So it's actually gate repairs reimbursement.
It's the reimbursement money we got.
Thank you.
And that number will come off. The last income item we have is the laundry income. Now, although we've generated 20,621 as our estimated 2019 actual income, we kept it the same as the 2019 budget for right now. As we get closer to the last meeting, that number may fluctuate a little bit, but I wanted to try to keep on the conservative side. Do I have any questions about the income line items? Yes, sir.
Are we anticipating getting some advertising on the bus system? You talked about this for at least 2 years, and I'm not aware that any advertising has even been looked at to bring in a little extra income. Sure, we can find local people who would be interested in advertising on the buses.
Question.
At the moment, there's no one set up to do that at all. Go ahead.
I have a question. What about the people that solicit advertising for the reporter? Couldn't they use the same people to advertise on the bus?
You probably could, but wouldn't it be nice if the people that are getting the bus ride, when they're in the shopping center, walked into the storefront and said, would there be a way you could advertise for our people? We could bring you 55 people in.
You're not gonna have people do that.
It's not a hard thing to do.
For you and me, maybe. But I think the people that are soliciting for the reporter should also solicit for the bus. And the same people who are advertising in the reporter would have a double shot. And maybe you don't even have to charge as much because it would be on the bus for longer than it would be in the paper. So it could be half price. Make it interesting.
Could be, but we need someone to volunteer to do that.
Okay.
Interested?
I would be interested if I were allowed to, but there are people who don't want me to work at Kuko, so.
Got it.
What did you want to say?
I was just gonna say, when this came about, this contract with the buses, we decided that we could advertise on the buses and we would get all the revenue from it. Before, we were splitting the revenue. And we were going to do advertisement on the buses of every fall. But then the head of the paper said no, they were going to handle it. So in other words, if you took an ad from the paper, right, they would say to you, well, for an extra, whatever you decided, $50, $100, right, in the ad, you will be on 7 buses, 7 days a week practically. That's how the paper was going to handle it. I don't know where the ball was dropped, but nothing has been done as far as advertising. And I don't know if we have a person on the paper who actually gets advertisement for the paper. And if we do have someone who does it for the paper, then they should go out and we should have a list of all the places that our buses go to and solicit those people. Yeah, they can say no. You know how many stores we go to and shopping centers with those buses? And also excursion buses, like the festival and all. There's a lot of revenue for us to get after, but someone has to do it.
So we'll go ahead and I'm going to add advertising in buses. Can we do it as a conceivable?
Yeah, 2.
Yes, ma'am.
A couple of transportation meetings ago, I would say 2 months, the chair of transportation said she was going to the outlet mall and going to see the manager to do exactly what you're saying. Ask which stores would like to advertise on our buses. Never gotten word back on that. As to what Barbara said, it's true. Whatever she said is true. It just dropped somewhere and didn't continue.
Just something I'd like to add too about the advertising on the buses. With the numbers that we now know of how many steps on the bus at 1,800 possibly a week, I think the ad revenue could be much more. I think soliciting to the ones that do advertise in the paper, and I think also opening it up for advertisement to others. Again, we're on a volunteer system, but we also do have some paid administration. I don't think that it would be too difficult to find out before the next budget meeting whether or not it's possible and what fee structure we could expect.
All right, and another possible source. We negotiated 3 community channels on the cable contract. That's another opportunity to advertise on the community channels.
Is that channel 63?
Yeah, it's
590, 591.
It's now 590, 591, and 592, but yeah, it's channel 60.
Wasn't there a law against that at one point?
No, not Comcast wouldn't allow it,
Okay.
period.
Okay.
But we had it put into,
We have carte blanche with the
Right.
AV.
Okay, I didn't know that.
It's different.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, these are all really good points, but this is a budget meeting, it's not a transportation meeting.
No,
And-
understood.
And time-wise, we're talking about maybe this, maybe that. We're not gonna really have, by the time this budget comes out, concrete figures to put into the budget. So
Which is true.
We're ahead of ourselves for the budget, in addition to the fact that we're kind of going into different committees.
Understood. I think though that the advertising on the bus is something that's great. I think we can get the answer, I think we can get relatively quick to at least get an idea, because if it's something that we can go forward on, I'd like to include it on the budget, especially if it's something that could generate additional revenue in advertising revenue. I don't think we're gonna get to the channels for advertising on there. That takes much more time, but if it's something that happens in 2020, that's great. Okay, so moving down, and just so everyone knows, some of these are estimates. There's not much on here is specifically concrete, as much it is us kind of working out some of these numbers. So when we get down to laundry expenses, which is the 7100 account and their sub-accounts, we have electricity, which we're going to be adding to the budget. We have propane, we have laundry repairs, and we have water laundry that we're adding to the budget. Both the electricity and the water, we've added a 5% increase. And what we've done is we've taken the numbers that we used to have on the general expense for electricity and water utilities and deducted it from those numbers. So including the 5% increase, it still nets out to the same number. When we go below to transportation expense, right now we have the budget for 2020 the same as 2019, including the fuel for the bus. Whether or not, our 2019 estimate for the transportation contract is $876,000, but we wanted to keep it the same as the 2019 budget, just in case there's differences that may arise. Yes, ma'am.
In the contract, that's the regular contract, in transportation expenses, is there any place in there that shows cost of the excursion buses?
They're actually included in that number.
So they're included, how many are included in that number?
Mr. Blank.
This year, we're at 2
Two
per month.
Is that the same for next year?
We haven't had a meeting to talk about it yet, and I
Okay,
seriously,
no, I'm just looking at the prices, that's why I'm trying to figure it out.
I seriously think we have to look at what's best for the community as to how far we want to see these payments go up,
Okay.
because this is a flat.
Yes, ma'am.
What does it mean waiting on Qualtran?
So that was something that we were looking into to see if that would adjust the number at all. But as of right now, nothing has gotten any gainful. So we've left the number the same.
You were looking into how?
We were looking into alternate sources.
We were looking,
Who would pay for that?
we were looking to see if Palm Tran could assist us in some way to provide for people that have a wheelchair and they need to get on a bus or some kind of vehicle.
Why would we pay for that? Why shouldn't the bus company provide a handicap bus for us?
Because it would run us
$90.
$90,000.
Yeah,
If Palm Tran would do it, it would cost us $3.50 each way. So we talked to them, but we found that
But we're dealing with a person
doesn't,
who doesn't want to pay anything.
that what we're dealing with Palm Tran that only has 60% of what it needs to run the entire area they manage here. So they're 2 hours late to everybody, or more. As a result, it's unlikely they're gonna be able to participate in any way. And they will not work for us and let us pay their fee. They work independently and they basically told us that.
I don't have to tell you the politics in this place. You know, this is gonna come before the delegates. There's no doubt about it. Do you want our community bus system to be wheelchair accessible?
We need one.
At $95,000 a bus, current buses cannot be retrofitted. This is not a decision that's going to be put off. We have 2 threatened lawsuits right now on the table. So you need to think about it. And you may be right, it may not be all the buses, it may be one bus. And that's what we're trying to work here with Palm Tran, to try to cut this $1 million a year cost and meet, albeit a small percentage, of wheelchair-bound people's needs.
But just so we can get into the picture of what Palm Tran does, in the last month, they did some 500 pickups of people in this village and returned for people coming back.
How many were the same people though? If they
That's
weren't
not as much
Yeah.
relevant as to say it was 60% of what they have going on and 37 buses or vehicles they don't have built yet. They're having a hell of a time. So the concept is if we provide something, it's a beginning. And that beginning, if we can cut the budget for what is transportation to allow for us to put a bus out there that's going to pick up 2 people, bring them to the clubhouse every half an hour, we can pretty much start the ball rolling. But that's why we got them out to get a better understanding.
Just one more comment. I don't know if people are aware that when you take Palm Tran, your aide or your spouse or whatever goes free. So it's really a good deal. You pay $3.50 for 2 people.
I was just gonna say, if you don't have that kind of money, income, they will take it for free,
Yes, I thought so.
on the connection. Because I take it, I know, and it's,
Meet the criteria.
it's a marvelous system. And we should very lucky that they come in here to take us.
Yes. Okay, the next line item is going to be security expense 7300. We've taken the budget line item and we've increased it by 5%. There's going to be some change to that as we work out the separation between, is it WPRF and UCO? But as of right now, we took the budget line item and increased it by 5%, which is what they have in their contract. Yes, ma'am.
Is this the same contract or a new contract?
It's a new contract which we will effectively begin soon. But the main structure here is Daniel is managing both sides. So Ms. Rachevsky can have certain things that she wants to do, but they're going to be following the rules of Platinum, given raises by Platinum, overseen by Platinum, and be cross-training. They're the changes.
The next line underneath the security contract is investigations. If everyone remembers, under the revenue line item for investigations, we had $130,000, and for the expense, we have $130,000. In reality, we actually earned about 33% on the income that we've taken in, In 2019, our estimated intake from investigations is about 127,000. The estimated expense is going to be around 96,000, giving us a difference of about 30,000 in income from investigations. However, on the 2019 budget, when we added investigations in as a line item for income and expense, we left the number the same just in case if there were more investigations that cost more than 100 to be able to outweigh those differences. I did the exact same thing for 2020, and I did 130,000 of investigation fee coming in and 130,000 coming out, although that number may change. Yes, ma'am.
At the end of the year, in investigations, if you have excess money, right, which what you're looking at, to me, you will have, what do you do with that money? I'm asking him.
So that money either goes into reserves or it'll flow through to the next year. That will be the decision that the community and the budget committee will make.
So we made this year.
It goes into legal.
Reserve.
That's what
Yes,
I'm
but
asking,
the
but you
decision,
say that.
sorry, it does go into reserves based on what we've done in the prior years.
Okay, that's good, thank you.
The next line item is going to be irrigation and landscaping. Right now, I kept that budget exactly the same as 2019's budget. Before we get to the second budget meeting, we should have the proposals of what we think the cost is going to be. I don't think it's going to be relatively different or within, 5 or 10,000. So as of right now, I left the number the same as the 2019 budget. Next, we have the cable bulk service, account 7502. You'll notice that that number is obviously lower than the 2019 budget and is lower than the 2019 estimate. That's from the Atlantic Broadband change. As of right now, the number that we have in the 2020 proposal has the Atlantic Broadband cost for all 12 months. That number may adjust as we get down to a by-month scenario, but as of right now, that's what the number is going to be. Next, ambulance contract, account 7504. That number as of right now is going to remain the same as the 2019 budget unless something changes and we either go with a different process or something entirely different. Yes, sir.
Just a question about the cable bulk service up above the cable fees, 4100.4 is about 400,000 more than what they're going to be paying Atlantic Broadband. Am I correct in saying that?
Say that one more time.
401.4 is proposed to be 3.53 million.
Oh, no, that number is just an arbitrary number as of right now. You'll see that what he's talking about is why doesn't the income cable equal the expense on cable? Those numbers are just arbitrary, and I have a plug figure, which is the one right below transportation fees, right below the account 4100.8. So those will adjust up as soon as we're, probably get past the second budget meeting. Okay, so that was the cable ambulance. Okay, next is the general and administration expenses.
Well, go back to ambulance for a second. because
Yes.
We haven't really discussed that yet.
Yeah.
Have we had a meeting with them lately to find out how many pickups they've had in this village in the year of 18?
We have, and they won't tell us.
They won't?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's almost 2 months in the waiting.
Okay.
It's indicative of the fact they're probably not even doing 200 a month, or 200 a year,
Right,
when 3 years ago it was 1,000.
right. 'Cause I
So
know
is it worth our while to stay with
No,
them?
absolutely not. Fire rescue does $5,400 a year.
say something? I've been in touch with the lady that's in charge. We had a meeting, she came into the office, we gave her a specific number of items.
You're talking about Sarah Kirkland?
Sarah, yeah, 7 days later, she called me back, she said, please email me with exactly what you want. That was 3.5 weeks ago.
Nothing changed?
2 weeks ago, I called, I've been calling her once a week. She said their computers crashed, she was getting me that information, and she would have it within a week. 10 days later, I am still waiting for some kind of numbers from her, so I'm kind of agreeing. Besides the fact that when they came into the office, the coverage that's being covered by Medicare and Medicaid seems to be diminishing, and their service has gone down 100%, whatever has been cut.
This is not unusual with that company,
No.
plus the fact that over the last 6 or 8 years possibly, they've been in one litigation or another with other ambulance services, and so I believe that their stability is not as great as it should be.
You might also want to know
I
that,
would vote no.
you might also want to know that this business of being able to recover for what your expense would be is no longer available.
I know.
What Medicare is taking things out that they no longer can do. They can do it, but they can't collect it.
Right, and the copay has gone up. So that's a big problem also, and
Well,
they're
but
not
on,
recouping.
but on the other side of the coin, if you ride the red wagon, and while you're in that wagon, you have a heart attack, they have a phone, they can have a doctor waiting at the door when you get there, and you're getting first-rate treatment.
You're talking
If you're
about
in their
professionals.
vehicle, if you're riding in their vehicle, you're laying down, they can't even get near you,
Mhm.
and bouncing around like.
You're speaking to
stove.
the choir.
So the basic issue is, it's to our benefit to look at whether this is reasonable to stay with, and this committee will make its mind up
I hope so.
and go forward.
I hope so.
Yes?
When will we take a look at it, and what's the process to consider making a change on that?
This committee's going to make that decision in the couple of meetings that we have going on with regard to what's changing here. But today, it's not something I want to talk about. I just want to go over the basic structure.
All right. Okay, so after the ambulance, we get to general and administration expenses. The first line item we have is beautification. The beautification committee submits a proposal. As of right now, we have it as the same thing as the 2019 budget, which is the $30,000. Yes, sir.
I haven't yet, Donald and I have not, and it's okay, you can all hear me, right?
Yes, yes.
Practice screaming, put that down, don't throw this and that, from the old days. We put the $30,000 as what we did the year before, but Donald and I will sit down and talk about those proposed things that we'd like to do. So it may go up, and we're going to try to keep it within reason, but we're going to request somewhat of an increase depending on the projects that we see for the next year. And so we'll have that, for the next meeting, we'll make that proposal. I don't expect it to go up dramatically, but we would just like a little bit more flexibility, because we've got a lot of input from people who want certain projects done. Some of them seem quite reasonable and would not cost a lot of money, but we want to have the flexibility. And we don't need the money for the signs, because that's already been done and taken care of. The irrigation is fine, so that's not a built-in expense. So it's just for beautification, and is planting and upkeep and changing of the planting. Okay.
Thank you. So beautification remained the same as the 2019 budget. The next is repairs and maintenance. I know it says not roads, but it's repairs and maintenance across the board. We estimate that we're going to spend $237,000 in 2019. We have a budget of $190,000. We budgeted for 2020 $240,000. Now that number is going to go down. The reason is we have reserve items that are included, and as we do timing differences, probably by the end of third quarter or so, we're going to pull those line items out, and those will be pulled from reserves. As of right now, I left it at the 240 just so we can have an idea, comparing apples to apples. The next two, utilities for electric, utilities for water. So what we've done is we've pulled out the items for the laundry room because there were a few residents that wanted to see that number with laundry to show whether or not we're profitable or not on the laundry income. So what I did is I included the 5% increase of what we thought it was going to increase for the electric and water, and then I backed out the number that I pulled to the laundry, electric, and water. Next line item, legal fees general. So right now I have the number double what we had for 2019's budget. That number will adjust just like it did last year. There were a few things that we did in 2019 that had the 2019 legal budget go up, but that number may adjust depending on what the outcome of some of these items are. Yes, ma'am.
I see on here you had a Sue OEO, that was turned down by delegate assembly.
It doesn't mean it has to remain dead.
But it is that as of
If
now.
the delegates change their mind because something comes up, it may change. We're not taking it away, and we're not encouraging it.
I'm just saying as of now, they voted no.
That's right.
Okay.
We're not proposing it again.
Change their mind.
And just so everyone knows, I think it's the last 2 years that I've been doing this. Every note I have is every note that you have. Every note you see on the screen is every note that I see. I keep nothing from you guys as far as what I put in the notes section. I think that's important because it allows you to see things that may be of importance to you, or how I may have come up with the number. So although they may have been struck down, there's still a possibility. For insurance, so the next line item under legal is insurance. We budgeted 71,000 roughly for 2019. The number came in at about $1,000 more than what we had estimated. For 2020, we increased it to 83,418. Now, just like last year, that number will come down by the third meeting.
I'm going to kind of explain why it went up 15%. The insurance company had all of the buildings reappraised, and they all reappraised at 10% higher value. So that's part of why it went up 15%.
Every 3 years.
But as we get closer to the third meeting, usually we try to, if we can get within that 90-day time frame, we try to get a quote so we can get that number a little bit closer. Next line item, office supplies. This number may change slightly. Right now we use the 2020 budget line item and we copied it from the 2019 budget. Our estimate is not too far off, but one of the things that I'm not sure if people remember, in 2019 we stopped the HGI contract with the copier. Relatively expensive, great services. However, it wasn't really what we needed, and we've been paying for toner out of the office supply line item. So we're still within the same number. However, it may change as we get closer to the second or third meeting, depending on what we estimate for the future. And then when we get down to copier, we'll talk about that too. All right, the next line item is the accountant fees and the annual audit expenses. As of right now, the accountant fees, there's going to be some allocation to the reporter that will reduce that number a little bit. So we should be within budget on both sides. I did increase the budget from $39,900 in 2019 to $44,000, but that number may come down. I just wasn't sure at the time when I was putting it together, because I wasn't sure if we were going to use the same engagement for the auditor, etc. Next line item, administration salary expense. Right now, I took the number that we expect we're going to pay out in 2019, and I did a 3% increase. I think a lot of people hope that. The related taxes, I just based it off of the estimated 2019, but just like last year, once we get closer to the second and third meeting, those numbers will become more concrete to exactly what the employer's portion will be for the related taxes. Next line item, computer and computer-related equipment. If you remember in 2018, we used to have that number split up into two separate numbers. It really didn't make much sense, so we combined it into one account, and I left the budget the same as 2019. Again, that's another number that will probably come down by the second or third meeting as we ascertain which servers may need to be replaced, which ones are still going to be replaced using the 2019 budget, and what may need to be replaced in 2020. So that number will be adjusted. Channel 63 was just based on the 2019 estimated costs. We're within, I would say, less than 10%, but we just needed to have a number that could be a placeholder while we work that out with what the exact cost is from Atlantic Broadband. Computer tech support, that number is supposed to be with computer and related equipment, so there's no 2020 budgetary line item for that. Pest control. So I'm trying to work out the specific details of the pest control for 2020 and why we're over budget for 2019. I'm not sure if there was something special that happened. Right now it's based on an estimate for going forward through 2019. So it's not that that's the actual amount that was spent, it's the number that we assume will be spent based off of our prior data. But again, that number could go back down. So right now I have it equaling the estimate number, but we'll confirm to see if there were any increases or anything that may have been a one-time item that may need to repeat annually.
What does pest control include? Seems like a lot of money.
There are three components to the pest control program. One is regular treatment of the 5 buildings that Depot owns.
Oh, okay.
The second is termite inspection and treatment for all 5 buildings. And the fourth is the rodent control program, which is on Depot property throughout Century Village.
Thank you.
What about bus stops that you're treating too?
There is the occasional, that would be a spot treatment. So, yeah.
Still included.
Yeah.
Ready?
Red ant treatment, yeah.
Right.
Until a few people get bitten, then we take it out.
The rodent control program alone is in the $5,000 a year range, so I think this number is actually low.
That's about right, yes.
Okay. Oh, yes, ma'am.
The next one, volunteers, is the one?
Yes.
Okay, that $4,000 is for what? The luncheon, volunteer luncheon?
Oh, I think we skipped a few. Yeah, we're not there yet.
Okay.
All right, next line item is going to be postage. Under postage, we kept it the same as the 2019 budget. Although our estimate is still rather low or below budget, as we work out what expenses we'll have for the remaining 6 months, that number may change. It may either go up or down, depending on what we estimate for the 2020 year. Copier expense. So as of right now, we have removed the HGI contract from the budget, which is about a $24,000 savings. However, there will be an addition added to the reserve side, which will be to procure a new copier if we so need one. As of right now, every copier repair place and service place that we've talked to has said, well, after 1 million copies, your machine wouldn't last too long. Well, we definitely showed them. We've spent about $1,400 in repairs, paid for our own toner, and the copier machine has worked just fine. There's a few hiccups here and there with stapling and stuff, but nothing that has derailed us by a significant amount. So as of right now, that line item is removed. However, it will be moved to the reserve item because from now on, we're probably not going to get service contracts, and we're probably going to continue with our same ideology of we buy the machine, we own the machine, we maintain the machine, and no one charges us a monthly fee for that. Next item, the Welcome Committee. That's a committee where we, I believe, receive a number of what they expect that number will be. As of right now, I left it at the 2019 number. That may change by the second or third budget meeting. Kitchen expenses. Again, this was another one where, you know, I want to just make sure that we don't have some of the items put in office supplies or something like that, but I left the budget the same for 2020 as it was in 2019. Same thing for telephone expense. If everyone remembers, in 2018, we believed that in 2019 we were going to be buying not a phone system, but there was part of the phone system that we already have needed an upgrade that we estimated was going to be around $5,000. Just like the a few line items before that, if it gets spent in 2019, we'll bring down the 2020 budget line item. If not, we'll leave it the same and then adjust accordingly. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, excuse my ignorance, but kitchen expenses, what's $4,700 for kitchen expenses?
Thank you. $100 a week?
Yeah, what do you do? I don't understand. What kitchen?
Yes, sir.
Kitchen expenses is mostly the break room. That would include the water deliveries, which, by the way, I'm the delivery man at the moment. Call it $15 a month, $60, $15 a week, $60 a month. All of our kitchen supplies are purchased on Amazon. So business analytics show approximately $400 a month on straight up kitchen supplies, food, water.
$100 a week.
Yeah, spot.
And this is in UCO,
Correct. The cookie age.
Snacks.
Snacks.
That's a lot of money.
I'll just say this like I say every year. That's why we have a budget meeting. So, yes, ma'am.
Years ago, it wasn't purchased online. People used to shop. Somebody and you used to shop, and we didn't have that access.
Understood. Again, this is the budget meeting, so that's the whole point of this meeting. All right, next line item, we talked about telephone. The next one is an ancillary line item that's going to get removed, that building maintenance and repair that will get moved up, and that account will get inactivated. Bingo Net, I'm going to take a look at the number. Hopefully our expenses don't outweigh the money that we generate from bingo. So we'll confirm that number to make sure that it's correct.
You're not supposed to
Why
make
would
money.
that?
We don't actually a wash.
Yes, so it shouldn't be $2,000 when they go
And I don't disagree with that, but just like, let's just say gate passes. When you go to purchase a gate pass, the money that you're spending to buy the gate pass pays for the cost of whatever you're getting. Same thing with bingo. However, the difference between those two line items is when you have to buy supplies that may be front-loaded beforehand, it may outweigh to where, let's say next year, you would actually show that number would be negative because you have to pay for the supplies. And some of these supplies are front-loaded before, nobody prepays for bingo. If you prepaid for bingo, that line item would be exactly a wash. But I believe it's supplies that are purchased that will be used in the future.
It's your inventory, in other words. That's what it is. But by law, bingo is not allowed to make money. It's supposed to be a wash.
It should be a wash, it shouldn't show anything.
You need
To
gold
confirm,
coins
are we
for
talking
each
about the bingo
number.
cards themselves?
Yes,
What else?
right. Well, you're talking about maintenance on the machine, it needs to
Right,
be
of course.
maintained, something breaks, servicing once in a while.
Well, that's different.
When the people that are moving it break a wheel, we have to fix it, etc. But the actual cost of the bingo supplies is supposed to be a wash. Whatever they're spending is supposed to,
Oh, and it includes the
That's up.
supplies itself.
yeah, that's it.
But we do pay for the supplies before we've actually sold them
Right,
though.
right.
So just so everyone knows.
So maybe you should just change the heading to bingo, supplies and maintenance,
Yeah.
so that if someone sees net, they shouldn't say, whoa, we're not making money. You know what I'm saying? Just
Okay.
change the name.
But the supplies are ordered like
That's fine.
3 months in advance so that they have
Not a
enough.
problem.
Right, not every
Maintenance,
week.
you don't know when it's gonna
Right.
happen.
It's
God
really an
bless you.
inventory, God bless you.
She's seizing on the truth.
Yeah.
So the point is that nobody should, jump
Right.
on you and say,
Right.
where's the money?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Now
Yes,
back-
ma'am.
Now back to volunteers.
Yes.
Many years ago, Kathy and I ran the luncheons, and we did have it catered. But in the past years, you've either had it at, in the clubhouse, or you've had it at the Avanti's, which is not $4,000. So I think that should be cut in half, in my opinion. Oh, what was that at Avanti? Oh, that was it, I'm sorry, that was the installation. So then, I take it back, we've had volunteer luncheons in-house. I think they've been barbecues the last few years, and that is not $4,000. We never spent $4,000 when we had it catered. So I would suggest putting that in half.
Is that the volunteer luncheon you're talking about?
Yes, that's what I believe this is.
Yes, ma'am.
When you had the price from this year of what it cost us for the volunteer luncheon, of course, the expenses.
Yes, but some of it's estimated for 2019, because remember, we take whatever
No, but
the,
what I'm saying is whatever the cost was in this year, 2019 for the volunteer
I don't think
luncheon,
that was the cost.
then whatever that cost was, I don't know what it was, but I would presume you would go on that cost basis for the following year for your budget.
I don't disagree with that, but remember though, that for our calculations, we take January through June 2019. We then estimate July through December. Some of these things,
The
No, that
There was
doesn't
no,
work.
it's a
It
one-shot
doesn't
deal,
work.
there's no.
I understand.
July through
Yeah, but
December.
And that's the point of this meeting. I didn't know that. So when we're estimating, that's why that number may be double, or we did factor in and it was 4,000, but I'll write a note though and take a look. Yes.
But if you get 300 volunteers at $10 a person, it's $3,000.
And you're not gonna get it $10 a person, they're
So-
coming in
You're not gonna get 300.
You're not gonna get it.
Yeah, but wait, if you show up, people say that they're coming and then they don't show up. They still have to have the food, whether they're there or not. If 300 people say they're coming and 250 show up, the caterer is not gonna take back 50 people and say, oh, we're gonna deduct that money.
I don't wanna go on to this subject of the doing the budget.
Yeah.
But just look it up and see how many people
Yeah.
came.
Yeah. That's all.
All right. So I'll go and I'll try to work that out and figure out if that's doubled. Yes.
Sorry, Sebastian, I kind of forgot. This is the volunteer appreciation luncheon, correct?
Yeah.
Do we charge the volunteers?
No,
I don't
no.
think so. It's an expense. Okay.
Why isn't the installation luncheon listed on the
Back in here.
So the installation, so she was asking why the installation luncheon isn't listed on here. The installation luncheon, I believe they charge tickets for.
Yes.
Yeah, so that we actually have as an income line item. Which that has not happened yet, and that's only once a year too?
Yes.
Okay, which hasn't happened. Okay, so that answers my question.
It's in March.
January and March.
Oh, so the installation luncheon did happen.
Yeah, March.
Don't worry, Sebastian, we'll figure it out.
Oh, perfect. Okay, the next line item is federal income tax. We have a plug in there as of right now of 5,000. That number is going to change once we get an idea of what the true amount is. Next line item is property taxes. We have that one the same as the 2019 budget. Again, that will be a number that changes as we get closer. We should be getting notices, I think, September 1st. So we should have plenty of time to make changes to that. For the next line items under UCO Reporter 7700, those numbers are based on the estimated 2019 expenses and also include line items that may not have been separated. So things like insurance, computer equipment, telephone, those sort of items. We'll go ahead and as we allocate that before the second budget meeting, those numbers are going to change. But the main thing to take from that is if you go all the way down to the bottom where it says total 7700 UCO reporter, that number equals what we take in income from the reporter. So it's supposed to obviously pay for itself and not cost the residents anything. So that's how we show it on the budget, but that number may change as we get closer to the second and third meeting. The last line item, sales tax. That number is based on exactly what we think we're going to pay in sales tax for 2019. Besides the increase in 2020, we've left that number the same as the 2019 estimated. The reason why we were off from the 2019 budget is, I guess I didn't realize that one of them had an escalation of how much rent we were collecting, so, but it's still net of the rent income. So before we move on to repairs, does anyone have any specific questions about any of the expenses? All right. Okay, so now we're on the last page, the reserves.
By the way, that's a good size font.
Good, I'm glad you like this size. So for the reserves, this is what I've done. There's going to be some changes before the second meeting, but basically what I wanted to illustrate is that for 2020, as of right now, the things that we're contributing to are going to be the road, fences 2 through 4, and irrigation and piping. I've reduced all the estimated years remaining down by 1 to give an updated figure of what that is. Give me a chance to take a look at it. So if you remember last year, we wanted to fully fund the Millennium, which means we have about $375,000. We have, I'll start from the top. We have the road reserves, the storm drain out, clean out, and repair. We have fence 1, fence 2 through 4, which we have 1 payment left on. Irrigation and piping, which we're adding to over the next 11 years. The generator, the Millennium expense, and the emergency hurricane and cleanup. Just like last year, people made suggestions of things that they wanted to add to the reserve list for future years down the road to contribute to. So if you go back to the first page and you look at the total association fees, which is on the first page, and it will say total 4100 association fees. That's the $2.12 a month increase for each one of the residents. Now, that number could be slightly higher or lower. As of right now, the net that we expect to receive in 2020 is about 1.5 million, and we need 1.6 million, but there's still changes that are being made, so I left it the same. So as of right now, with everything that you're looking at here, we're at a $2.12 a month increase for each one of the residents, about $25 for the year. Not too bad. Yes, sir.
Sebastian, just On the storm drain clean out and repair, just to let the committee know that half of the storm drains were cleaned out last year. We're planning to clean out the second half for 2020, and the expense will be the same. I believe it was $111,000 for the first half. Second thing is the fencing. We had an unexpected occurrence over this past year, and P&L Lane Clearing came and they're working the north and south boundaries of the property. There is significant fence damage that will have to be repaired probably during 2020. I have my first proposal coming in today, so we'll have a rough number of what that's expected to cost. I just don't know what it is right now.
I believe the system that I used is fence 1 is north, and then, when you look at a compass, WE, so that's fences 2, 3, and then south is fence 4. So I believe fence 1, we have the money already set aside in reserves for the north side. Whether it's enough or not, we'll make that determination before the second or third meeting, and then we'll adjust that number.
I mean, just roughly, I think you're covered, but I'll have a pretty tight number for you by the end of the day.
Understood. Yes, ma'am.
Is fence 1 and fence 2 and 4 meaning the habitable fence? Is that what you're talking about?
No.
Within the, okay, so,
Those are the other
okay, so where in the budget is for the fence that we're going to build on habitable?
That's fence 3, and that's the 4th line item down.
Right.
So that will be fully funded in 2020.
That's fence 3.
Last thing and the small thing is the generator. I think we should talk about that number to $20,000. I have 3 proposals on my desk. They're all in the $18,000 range. Adding in a survey, which we probably need to do, and landscaping. 20K sounds about right.
And then when we look at the Millennium fee, the Millennium cost of $375,000, I think that was the last line item that I'm not sure if we needed to contribute more to. Okay.
We're looking at some alternatives. I want to mention something about the storm drain clean out survey. As Donald pointed out, about half of it's been done. There are a number of cases of heavy root intrusion. Each pipe has been compromised and roots have gotten into the pipe. And one of the joys of being buried underground is it's very easy to ignore this. But these are major drainage systems. You can't ignore them forever. And I don't know where we have money to deal with, I looked at a lot of the videos to dig these pipes up and repair them. Because if you wait long enough, they're going to collapse on their own. And wherever they happen to be, there's going to be a big hole. It could be under a road, it could be on association property. But you don't want to ignore this. To repair that storm drainage system, big money.
So as of right now,
These are upwards of 50-inch pipes. Take a lot of water off this campus. So, just something, I don't know where that money is going to be.
we have it as a line item. The total we plan on collecting for irrigation and piping, repairs and replacement is $7 million. We have about $1.4 million in the coffers as of right now, and we plan on putting another $500,000 in 2020. Just to add to that point, especially about the roads, the fences, some of these line items, one of the things that we want to try to do is do a reserve study to be able to figure out each one of these line items broken out. It doesn't need to be so comprehensive, but we talked about it at the last meeting of 2018 for the 2019 budget about planning that for this year. And I think by having a asphalt company coming out can ascertain the cost to replace the road, having the people that did the storm drain clean out, and any of the repairs to give us an estimate of what they think that cost will be. And then what I'd like to do is I'd like to hope that by the third budget meeting, we can have a little bit more on concrete numbers, so that way we have an idea of what exactly those numbers were going to be. You know, nobody likes an increase, and neither do I. So I want to try to make sure that if we can try to get some solid, not that the numbers aren't solid, try to get better numbers on here. This will help better serve us in the future, because if something does happen and we do need a whole lot of money, the last thing we want to do is find out we don't have enough. Now, although you see the reserve is spread out, I've always been under the assumption that we run something called pooled reserves, which means nothing specific for anything. So if we have it split up so we can get an idea of what we need to contribute. However, if we need $5 million for new piping, we have that money available now. Right now, the estimate says $7.6 million will be in our reserves. You know, we've contributed quite a bit over the last few years, and as we keep contributing, that's going to hopefully make it so there's not going to be a special assessment, huge increases down the road, and it will just be nice and even as we go forward. And there's no one that likes to cut costs more than me, so definitely wherever we can save, you know, definitely try to.
Sebastian, would it be helpful to bring in a paving contractor now and get a proposal on full depth repair or another overlay?
So I made about 4 phone calls this morning of from some asphalt companies just to entertain the idea of coming out. They understand, you know, they understand completely that we're not trying to change it now. Right. We're not trying to do a resurface. We're not trying to, you know, go through innovative techniques. Just an idea of what it costs for the full replacement. They're more than happy to do it because they like to have their card with, you know, associations and with UCO. So if they ever do get the opportunity, they can hopefully bid on it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and really we need to look at the full replacement, because another overlay with the age of our roof and of our road system and the problems with some of the foundation underneath it, those mirroring cracks come through just like that.
Exactly.
And not only that, you got to remember, you keep building it up. The road system is actually part of our drainage system, and you don't want to build it up to the point where you can't get the water into the drainage system.
We had a study done 3 years ago where a contractor came in and actually drilled holes in the street, and there are certain parts where the underlayment has been washed away or not compounded correctly from the very beginning.
Right.
So that studies, we have that study.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, at another association that Chris and I use, they used technology that is what airports use. And what they do is, instead of a resurface, they scrape the top level and then they drill down into the parts that have been eroded and washed away, and they refill those spots so the height of your road never increases. And I'll tell you, I believe it was only supposed to last 5 years before, you know, you would do this again, and it was expensive. It was $150,000, I think, for their entire association. Probably 5 times that what it would cost here. However, what it does is it fixes all the erosion issues. It also stops cracks from reappearing, because everywhere there's a crack, they're actually going in and fixing those specific areas. And that's how they do runways, because you can't remove a runway and redo it. You know, planes have to land, and they've got to land, you know, 500 a day. So we use this same technology, and it worked out really well. We don't want to put it in our planning necessarily for the reserve number, but just a full, you know, pull up, replace, put back down, and that's it. Yes, sir.
One more thing for the storm drains. By, I would say, the second quarter 2020, that clean out and inspection will be complete. So we'll have a complete survey of every bit of our storm drains. At that point, we can get it out. We can get a real number.
Yeah, and I think, going to those same people and getting an idea, and even if it's just a rough estimate, at least it puts us in a better position. We're using numbers that may be a few years old, and just having those number updated are definitely much better. And, anyone who's had a new road put in it, a new community will know the way that they build roads now is way different than they built it before. So they're made to last much longer, support much more weight, handle the demands of buses and all those other things. So they, the technology has really changed the way that they do the roads. So as we keep contributing to this fund, I think that when something does happen or there is a major repair, because we think it would only be in one section at a time, we're not going to rip the whole road up one year and then put a new road down. That would be too intensive. But as it works in sections, we'll at least have the money to be able to cover that. Yes?
How many times can you do this before replacing the whole road?
Oh, we're not factoring that in. Only thing that we're factoring in is just the full replacement of the road. Yeah, so we're not going to factor in any other innovative ideas, anything like that. That will be for a later committee to decide when something needs to be done. But at least, we've contributed $5.2 million or so. We're about to contribute another $1 million in 2020. So we're definitely building that road reserve up. And I think that's going to be to the betterment of everyone. Yes, ma'am.
David, over here. I think it's important when we have our next delegate assembly meeting, for you to tell everybody sitting in that auditorium exactly what you observed from the television that went underneath and how the roots and the drains are rotting like it did at Southampton. Everybody saw those pictures. And how important it is, because when people hear roads and bridges, right away they think it's not necessary because they're walking, they're driving, they're walking their dogs, they're doing whatever. But nobody seems to realize what's going on underneath after 60 years. And most of that stuff is like anybody at 60 years. You need a little support.
Thanks for rubbing that in.
So certainly, the ideal time perhaps is when we present the budget.
Yes, absolutely.
To the delegates to point out some of these hidden time bombs.
And it has to be made very clear in simple, one-syllable words that at any given time, a road can collapse or a pothole can appear, and it's because of what's going on underneath that nobody even thinks about.
We have some very compelling video that might be
Videos are scary.
But that's what we need to show our people so that they'll understand what all this $7 million is about.
See this 50-inch pipe with a giant root system through it. It's just a matter of time.
I understand that, but not everybody does.
No, it's a good idea to bring up. It is.
Show the pictures, for God's sake.
I'll be dead before the road falls
Or when it falls in.
That's what you'll be hearing. What do I care? I'll be gone. Who cares?
Really?
Yes, sir.
Put them on, put these videos on your blog, and perhaps the Eco Reporter can write an article on it with pictures.
Yeah.
Blog and the channels, the 3 channels you just mentioned, the one that Tamara showed.
It's set it to some nice music.
Yeah, nice music.
You can't go wrong with Princeton, man. Great work. Yes, ma'am.
Talking back on the fences, you have, there is balance, 100,000, and you have 162.5, right? The balance, what you have?
It's basically what we did is we did 100,000 for each side of a fence. So we did 100,000 north, west, east, south. However, when we were contributing the money, we didn't need to do fences 2 through 4 the first year. So we split that amount into payments to where we had some money that was contributed back in 2018, then we contributed 2019, and now in 2020 we'll contribute the remaining amount.
What I'm trying to say is on fence 3, which is Havoc, not only the fence, it's the walkway and other things. Is that going to be taken out of the reserve?
The walkway isn't included in the fence 2 through 4.
It's not.
I don't believe so. No, we didn't.
So where is the walkway money?
I don't think we took the walkway reserve line item out in 2019's reserve line item. Again, this is the budget meeting, so if there's something that needs to be proposed to be added back in,
Okay.
that's what we'll do at the second meeting. Yes, sir.
A point of information, the fence issues have been exacerbated by this great FPL project to destroy every living thing that happens to be along their power line. And it's not that they deliberately busted up the fence, but these trees and bushes have grown into the fence.
50 years.
And when they pull them up, and now whether you can get FPL to own up to that, good luck. So it kind of hastens the timeline that we had to repair/replace some of these big long chunks of fence line.
Yes, ma'am.
When I asked the question, I agree with Barbara, and I'm a little surprised the VPs, the officers voted on, the fence and the sidewalk, the executive board voted on it, and I'm not sure, did you delegate something? Yes, delegate. So I'm surprised that there wasn't a line item, or I'm not good with budget, so if I'm saying this all wrong, but I feel something, we're gonna do it. So something should be in this year's budget for the sidewalks.
Let me just jump right in there. Go before 7,860 people and say we're going to increase by $6. Believe me, I don't discount what you're saying, but we had to figure out a way where we could go up incrementally without, making 7,800 people upset. So I agree with you completely, and this is why one of the reasons why we did these staggers on some of these line items is so that way when we get to 2021, we can have line items that are in there to help do some of these things to where we don't have to increase people's monthly rate, by as much as we probably could in 2020, let's say.
Yeah, I'm not finding fault with the treasurer. I think I'm a little surprised. I'm sure people have seen this.
It's there.
Is it there for the roads? Where?
What I want to bring to your attention, if you looked at the last meeting's report that he made up, it showed for the first 2 quarters, as of the first part of July, we had 4 fence costs lined up as one item. We were not only ahead of the 2,000, what was the cost of the fence?
I'm not sure.
250, 275.
Donna, what are we paying for that fence now? Yeah, we actually had $400,000 surplus in the first 2 quarters. We had cut back on things to provide for that to be paid for because it could run us that much. That's still sitting there waiting to be used. So we don't have to go out and hit you up for an assembly amount. We just have the money.
It's going to cover the sidewalk and the fence along Century.
I want to see what
Right.
it is. Okay.
So it's covered.
But wasn't that covered in the 2019 budget? It's not being put in the 2020 budget.
Right.
That's,
Well, a portion of, the last portion of fence 2 through 4 is in the 2020 contributions, but just to take something
fence,
away,
not the walkway. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but
we run under pooled reserves. So that means that everything is always available in reserves for line items, but as far as contributing to specific line items, we tried to space those out. And one of the things that we talked about last year at the last budget meeting was this one, on meetings 2 and 3, that we would actually have some sort of prolonged year process to where if we wanted to add things in future years as a tool to be used for all future budgets, it would be helpful to have that where it said, column for 2020, column for 2021, and then says, let's say sidewalks, and then money to contribute to it. So even if you spent it in 220, it would be contributed in, 2021 and, going back and forth. So that is one of the things that we'll be adding to the second and third meeting for this year.
Yeah, but the pooled reserve idea does give the ability to use what you need. And you back off on some things that can perhaps wait. The money comes in, you have enough to do the initial job. That's why it's important to do it that way, and it's fully funded.
I don't understand, England, but is there any place that shows the money that we received from electric broadband?
It's in the reserves.
Oh, it's in the reserves that I'm looking at here?
Yes.
Oh,
There's,
Half of it is their contribution.
that's what I'm asking, like,
Pretty
because
heavy.
we got like, close 3 million,
3 million
800 and
plus.
something.
3 million
Yeah.
plus.
So that's in the reserves already.
That's a chunk of change.
And it's
A
not,
little bit, yeah.
that's not just the other income. Can you explain what money we've made from these bank investments we made?
so we don't have any.
You haven't brought that up yet.
We don't have any exact numbers yet. We're still trying to work out what we plan on earning for 2019. But just in one particular case with Seacoast, we moved 2.6 million over there, and we're earning 1.78%. That's completely liquid. We had a CD that ran for a year with 3 million in it that earned 1.6% interest.
Yeah, but don't forget the fact we had money with BB&T, and that money was tied up in a way we weren't satisfied with, but they just finished giving us $50,000 income.
And so
Raising
when you
money.
take that with what, we estimate the surplus this year is going to be around 400,000 to also contribute to reserves. That's probably going to fill a few line items to make things a little bit easier for us. And even with all the changes that we have included in here, we're at $2.12 increase a month with the way the budget looks now. There's a few changes here and there, but when we start moving some of the items out of the operating and when it comes from the reserves, that too is going to make our bottom line a little better. To the possibility where we may be able to adjust that $2.12, either way. So I think that as far as a financial health, when you look at the number, even if the entire reserve line item was just earning 1.78%, that's still much better than, most CDs, and it leaves the money fully liquid. And, we still have this opportunity to stagger the money that we just received from BB&T and try to go with, non-brick and mortar, but still FDIC insured banks, and, could possibly earn 2.87. So there's still a lot of opportunity there to still increase the amount of money that we're earning from that.
Bravo, bravo.
Can I talk about something else? Sure. When are we gonna talk about?
You want this?
Yeah.
When are we gonna talk about the $138,000 that we're paying for the ambulance, $660 for a pickup?
We will discuss.
Basically what it is.
We will discuss that as a team.
Okay,
And we'll make a proposal to them the next time we get together.
okay.
Okay?
Council.
But we're really over time now because we got started so late.
Oh, sorry about that. So everyone, if you'd like, keep your papers. What I will do, I'll talk to Chris in a minute, and what I'd like to do at the next meeting, you'll still have these notes that you have here. As I make the changes and make any additional changes, I'll give one more handout out, and then we'll also have it on the TV so that way you can write notes on your handouts in large print.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
For everyone, thank you so much.